My parents sold my $3,600 dream PC just to fund my sister's pointless shopping spree. So I left home, and what I did next shook my entire family in ways they never saw coming. My name's Tom. I'm 22, and I live in a small town called Crescent Falls, Oregon, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone's business. Ever since I was a kid, I've been obsessed with computers, gaming, and tinkering with tech. It wasn't just a hobby to me, it was a passion, the one thing that made me feel like I was actually good at something. No one ever understood why I could sit for hours reading articles about graphics cards or why I got excited about unscrewing and assembling parts like a kid with a new toy. But to me, every screw and every cable meant something. It took me nearly 4 years to build my dream setup, a $3,600 beast I jokingly called my mini sanctuary. I scraped together every dollar from my part-time job at the auto repair shop, took freelance gigs designing banners and posters for local stores, and even saved birthday money and New Year bonuses. It wasn't just for gaming, though I took gaming seriously, it was also my workstation. That PC helped me earn extra income through graphic design, gave me access to clients in bigger cities, and felt like the stepping stone to a future I knew no one in my family would help me build. Because if you lived in my house, you'd understand one thing: fairness doesn't exist here. My parents, Greg and Linda, are the parents are always right type, the kind who think being a parent means having the final say in everything, and their idea of right usually revolves around my sister, Lila. She's 18, beautiful, popular, and basically the center of their universe. If you've ever known someone who could make everyone around them orbit them like a planet, that's Lila. She has a taste for expensive fashion, is obsessed with brands, and lives like an influencer even though she's never made a dime. And my parents? They'd sacrifice anything, especially me, for her to shine. I grew up in Lila's shadow. If money was tight, I was the one who had to cut back. If something went wrong, I was expected to understand, because you're the older brother. My mom used to say, "You're a boy, you're stronger, so it's okay if you have less." My dad didn't even have to say much. His eyes always said it all. He never really believed I had a future. But I got used to it. I learned to work quietly, save patiently, and build my own dreams. I just never imagined they'd be ripped away so casually. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the empty desk like my brain hadn't caught up with what had just happened. The 32-inch curved monitor, gone. The RGB mechanical keyboard, gone. Even the mouse I carefully cleaned every weekend, gone. Everything had vanished. All that was left were a few hastily cut cables and my office chair tilted off to one side. I ran downstairs, heart pounding like it might explode. Greg and Linda were calmly sipping tea on the porch like it was just another peaceful spring afternoon. "Where's my computer?" I asked, trying to stay calm. Linda took a sip and said matter-of-factly, "Oh, we sold it. Lila needed stuff for the upcoming dance." I thought I misheard her. "Sold it? What do you mean?" Greg sighed like I was being dramatic. "Lila needed some new dresses. Money's tight, so we had to figure something out. It's just a computer." "Just a computer?" I froze. I spent 4 years saving up every penny for that build. It wasn't just for gaming, it's my work tool. I make money with it. Linda's tone shifted. "Don't raise your voice. We're a family, and sometimes we have to make sacrifices for each other. You're the older brother. You should be willing to give a little." I took a step back, eyes wide in disbelief. "You call taking my property without asking a sacrifice?" Greg snapped, "If you live in this house, your stuff belongs to this house. You don't have the right to complain." I stood there, numb. Years of effort and dreams tossed aside just because my sister wanted to dress up a bit for a party. And the scariest part wasn't losing the PC, it was how they talked about it. Like I didn't matter, like nothing I did ever counted. That night, I texted Leo. He's the only person I could talk to about this without getting laughed at. "They sold my PC," I wrote, "so Lila could go shopping." Leo called me right away, just as pissed as I was. What the hell? They didn't even ask you? Not a word, I replied. It's like I never even existed. I couldn't sleep. I just kept staring at the empty space where my PC used to be, like someone had carved a hole in my life. It wasn't just about losing a thing, it felt like I'd lost a part of myself, and no one in that house even cared. The next morning, I decided to confront Lila. Not because I expected her to apologize, but because I needed to understand, or at least hear some kind of explanation from her. She was standing in front of her bedroom mirror, trying on a wine-colored dress, her bouncy curls pinned back with a rhinestone clip. The room looked like a page out of a fashion magazine. "Do you even know what just happened?" I asked, leaning on the doorframe, trying to stay calm. Lila didn't turn around. "What do you mean?" "My computer, the one I spent 4 years building. Where is it?" She shrugged, still admiring herself in the mirror. "Oh, that. Mom said she sold it. I needed stuff for the town women's gala. I didn't tell her to sell it, if that's what you're implying." "But you suggested it, didn't you?" I snapped. "You knew damn well it was mine. You knew how important it was to me." Lila finally turned, her eyes icy. "You act like that machine was your soul or something. It's just a PC. You can build another one. It's not like it's your first." I let out a dry laugh, humorless, bitter. "It's not about whether I can rebuild it. That was my work machine. I used it to make a living. You knew that. You're always going on about work and stuff, but all you do is sit in your room all day, playing games with your buddy Leo. Not everyone sees that as real work, you know?" I clenched my fists, holding back the anger. "And you think wearing dresses and going to parties is more legitimate?" Lila gave a faint, knowing smile, the kind people wear when they know they've already won. "You can think I'm ungrateful or selfish if you want, but clearly Mom and Dad think I'm worth it. I didn't sell your computer. They did, because they care about me." I looked at her. This girl who once played with dolls by my side, who was once afraid of the dark, who once cried over bad grades, now standing there, letting words slip from her mouth like blades. I realized in that moment no explanation would make me feel better, because the issue wasn't what she took, it was that she didn't think it was wrong. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. Lila turned back to the mirror, adjusting her belt like the conversation had never even happened. The days that followed were a blur. I became a ghost in my own home, avoiding Lila, barely speaking to Greg or Linda. They acted like nothing had happened. Still ate breakfast like usual, still gossiped about the neighbor's new patio, still asked if I wanted to go to church on Sunday, as if they hadn't just ripped my life apart. I tried working on my old laptop, the one I'd had since freshman year of college. It ran like a broken microwave, overheated constantly, lagged every second, and crashed without warning. I was working on a banner for a bakery in a nearby city that had hired me to revamp their branding, but the file kept crashing. Every time I hit save, I held my breath. Then the software froze. The laptop locked up. 3 hours of work, gone. I emailed the client an apology, promising I'd resend the revised file that night. But they didn't wait. An hour later, I got a cold response. "We need someone more professional. Thank you, but we'll be seeking another designer." I stared at the screen, hands ice cold, heart pounding so hard it physically hurt. It felt like sitting in a car with failed brakes, careening downhill, completely powerless. I stood up, shoved the chair back, and paced like a caged animal. The rage rose in my throat like lava. It wasn't about losing a client, it was about the way everything was crumbling, one domino at a time. Everything I'd built, everything I fought to protect, crushed in a single snap by people who swore they did it out of love. I called Leo. He picked up after a single ring. "Tom, what's going on?" I didn't even know what to say. I just exhaled. "I just lost my biggest client." Leo was silent for a moment. "Because of the computer?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "The laptop's dying, banner's not done, deadline's gone." "Listen," Leo said, voice firm, "you can't let them walk all over you like this. If you don't stand up now, they'll take even more. Not because they're evil, because they think you won't stop them." I sank onto the bed, staring at my hands, the same hands that once screwed in every bolt, every fan, every cable. Now balled into fists. Maybe Leo was right. Maybe I'd been silent for too long. That night, I sat at my desk, the dim desk lamp casting a yellow glow over the shadows in my mind. I opened up the folders on my external hard drive, photos I'd taken while building the PC, from unboxing the first parts to the moment the startup logo blinked to life. In those pictures, I looked thin, wearing an old t-shirt, eyes lit up like a kid discovering buried treasure. Quietly, I gathered everything: receipts from online purchases, order confirmation emails, progress photos of the build, pictures of the finished setup on my desk, and freelance income statements showing the money I'd earned with that exact machine. All of it went into a folder labeled simply Evidence. Then I found the buyer, a Facebook account I tracked down from a snippet of info Mom had let slip, while bragging that they still made a profit selling it to that guy. I messaged him, explained the situation, that the PC was something I built, used for work, and that it had been sold without my consent. The buyer, a man named David, replied an hour later. "To be honest," he wrote, "it's a great rig, and I do feel bad for you, but I paid $1,200. If you want it back, I can't just hand it over. I'm sure you understand." I did, and that's what hurt the most. Everything about this was technically legal. I'd been betrayed by my own family, and there was nothing I could do without clear proof. Now, I had it. I stared at the evidence folder one more time before closing the laptop. I knew I couldn't just let this slide. I'm not the kind of person who picks fights, but I'm also no longer the son who silently swallows every injustice just to keep the peace. If I didn't stand up for myself now, no one ever would. I let out a long breath and leaned back in my chair. A plan was already forming in my head, vague, but solid enough. I'd wait until everyone was at the dinner table, Greg, Linda, and even Lila. I'd lay everything out right there. And this time, I wouldn't let them brush it off with lines like, "Your sister needed it," or "Family means sacrifice." This time, I wanted them to see every dollar, every order number, every receipt proving I wasn't just some expendable son to be treated like a stranger. That night's dinner went on like usual, or at least for them. Greg was in the middle of telling a story about a buddy on the town council who got caught sneaking cigarettes behind his house. Linda was excitedly chatting with Lila about a new spa promo downtown. I sat there silently, fork in hand, not even touching the potatoes on my plate. Lila giggled as she scrolled through her phone, probably texting her clique of weekend cafe hopping, outfit coordinating friends. She was wearing one of her new dresses, the kind that, no need to say, was bought with the price of my computer. I looked around the table, then set down the folder I had prepared. Thick, bound in a black plastic cover, firm and heavy, like what I was about to say. "I want the $1,200 back," I said, voice steadier than I expected. "This is all the evidence showing that PC was mine. I bought it. I built it. I used it for work. You had no right to sell it." Greg looked up, frowning. Linda froze mid-slice of her chicken. "What are you talking about, Tom?" Linda asked, her voice laced with disbelief, like I was speaking nonsense. "I'm saying you took my personal property and sold it without my permission," I repeated, flipping open the folder and showing each document, component receipts, build photos, income statements from clients. "I have full proof, and if I have to, I'll take this to the legal level." Greg slammed his fork down, the metal clattering loud against the plate. "You're threatening to sue your own family?" "No," I said, locking eyes with him. "I'm demanding what's mine." Lila let out a scoffing laugh. "Oh my God, are you seriously so obsessed with that computer you're willing to sue us over it?" I turned to her, my gaze now stripped of restraint. That computer was 4 years of my work, my livelihood, the one thing in this house I actually owned. And you know that. "Don't be dramatic, Tom. Who knew you were this pathetic?" She shrugged, eyes already back on her phone. "No, pathetic is being so spoiled you think everything you want is yours, even when it's not." Greg slammed his hand on the table. Enough. I won't tolerate this disrespect. I'm the one who raised you. And for the past few years, I've been raising myself, I said, each word sharp. And today, I'm defending myself. No one said a word. I stood up, leaving my untouched plate behind. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. I knew I could never go back to being the obedient son, and honestly, I didn't want to. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I was excited, just because the unease from last night still lingered like a bad dream. But then I saw the folder still sitting on the desk, and I knew it hadn't been a dream at all. Before 9 a.m., Greg knocked on my door. He didn't wait for me to answer. He walked in, holding a stack of cash, every bill neatly clipped together. $1,200. Take it and drop this, he said, his voice colder than winter air. I took the money, said nothing. No thank you, no apology. We just looked at each other for a few seconds, the kind of look between two men who both know there's nothing left to say. I messaged David, the man who had bought the PC, and told him I had the money. He agreed to sell it back for the same price. 2 hours later, I picked up my child again, the matte black case, the RGB cooler, the familiar setup I'd worked on through endless deadline nights. Setting it back on my desk, I felt my heart slow down for the first time in days. But not everything returned to normal. The PC was still the PC, but I wasn't the same person I'd been a week ago. There was now a gap between me and my family that couldn't be closed. Linda barely spoke to me that day, just rolled her eyes when I passed through the living room. And Lila, business as usual, posting selfies with hashtags like outfit goals, like none of it ever happened. I wasn't surprised. This house had never truly been mine. I'd just clung to the hope that if I tried hard enough, if I was good enough, they'd finally see me as part of it. But all I ever got was indifference. And now, after having to buy back my own hard work, I finally understood just how wrong I'd been. I texted Leo, I got the PC back. He replied almost instantly, good, so what's the next move? I looked around the room. Pale-colored walls, a small window overlooking the backyard where Linda grew her lavender bushes. I used to think this place was safe, that it was home. But now, that feeling was nothing more than a distant luxury. I typed out a new message, I think it's time I left this place. And this time, I truly meant it. From that day on, I stopped trying to blend in with the atmosphere of the house. I ate my meals alone in my room. No small talk. Greg and Linda seemed perfectly fine with my silence, and Lila treated me like I was invisible, except for the occasional jab like, so have you rebuilt your little kingdom yet, big bro? I didn't respond. I spent my free time planning. I started researching places to live near the city center, where Leo once mentioned there were a few affordable apartments for freelancers. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but given the choice between freedom and constantly living in my sister's shadow, I'd pick freedom every time. One night, I was working on a new design project when the power went out. Linda knocked on my door, her voice laced with irritation. What are you doing that's using so much electricity you blew the circuit? I didn't answer. I got up and checked the breaker. Nothing was wrong. But Greg was already waiting at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed. You planning to stay holed up in that room forever, using power all day while we pay the bills? He said, eyes heavy with implication. If you want independence so bad, why not move out? I looked him straight in the eye. I'm already working on it. Greg let out a sarcastic laugh. Good, if you can take care of yourself, all the better. One less burden for us. And that was the moment it became crystal clear. To them, I wasn't a son. Not family, just another expense. This house had never truly been mine. That night, I called Leo. Are you sure that apartment's still available? Yeah, but are you really ready for this? I don't think I've ever been more ready. We scheduled a viewing for the weekend. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, an open kitchen, and a balcony overlooking a parking lot. Nothing fancy, but it had something my parents' house never did. Choice. Leo patted my shoulder as we stepped out. We can make this place into something good. I nodded, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a bit lighter. I didn't know what the future would hold, whether I'd have enough money, whether my freelance work would be steady, but I knew one thing for sure. I no longer wanted to live in a house where my hard work could be sold off like some meaningless object. It was time to write my own story. I moved out on a quiet Sunday morning, no yelling, no dramatic soap opera scenes, just me, quietly packing my things, a few clothes, my laptop, external hard drives, design equipment, and of course, the PC I had to buy back with my own blood and sweat. Linda watched me from the kitchen doorway, cup of tea in hand. "You're really leaving?" I paused, looked at her. "Yes." She didn't say anything else, just turned and went back inside, as if she'd just asked someone if they were headed on vacation, not if her son was leaving home for good. Greg wasn't around, off playing golf early in the morning, probably on purpose. As for Lila, she walked past me in the hallway, glanced at my suitcase, and smirked. "Don't forget to text us your new address in case we need to forward the electric bill." I didn't react. Lila always knew how to twist the knife, but this time it didn't cut anymore. Leo showed up on time, rental truck waiting by the curb. He helped me carry everything down, no questions, no complaints, just a few light jokes to ease the weight in the air. We had everything loaded up in under an hour. Before we left, I stood and looked at the house one last time. The faded red roof, the blooming bougainvillea by the porch, the window to my room cracked just slightly open. Everything was painfully familiar, but also exactly where I'd felt most alone. "Should I leave a note?" I asked Leo as I settled into the passenger seat. He shrugged. "Up to you, but if it were me, I'd write something they'll remember." I got out, walked back into the kitchen, and grabbed a sticky note. I wrote a few lines, not long, not bitter, just simple, honest words. "Thanks for teaching me the most important lesson. Home isn't always a safe place. Zrania, Tom." I stuck it on the fridge right next to the family photo. It was from a few years ago, me in the middle, arms pulled close by Greg and Linda, Lila tilting her head, smiling like a star. A photo that once made me feel like I belonged. Now it just made me feel like I'd been cropped in as an afterthought. I left without looking back, because for the first time in my life, I knew I was walking towards something, not running away, and I was choosing myself. Life after moving out wasn't exactly easy, but at least I knew every step I took was mine to choose. The apartment Leo and I rented was small but neat, on the third floor of an old but quiet building. The balcony was just big enough for a potted plant and a folding chair, where I often sat in the evenings with a cup of coffee and my laptop, watching people pass by below, no longer feeling like I was trapped in someone else's life. Freelance work slowly began to stabilize again. Without the distractions of cold shoulders, silent pressure, and constant conflict, I found myself working better. I even landed a new contract with an interior design studio in Da Nang, the biggest project I've had so far. Leo often joked, "If you'd moved out sooner, you'd be a millionaire by now." I laughed, but something in me still felt unsettled. After all, Greg and Linda are still my parents. Lila is still my sister. That thread, thin as it may be, never truly disappeared. One weekend night, while reviewing client files, I got a message from an unknown number. "Tom, it's Mom. Just wanted to know if you're okay." I stared at the words for a long time, feeling something I couldn't quite name rise in my chest. Not anger, not longing, just a deep, numbing stillness. I didn't reply. I turned off my phone, stepped out onto the balcony, and let the wind carry away the tightness in my chest. I know that someday I might respond. Maybe I'll sit down with them, talk things through, forgive, or just listen. But not today, because today I'm still learning how to be an adult who isn't controlled, who doesn't suffer in silence, who doesn't have to prove his worth through quiet endurance. I turned on my PC again, watching the soft RGB glow pulse across my desk. It used to symbolize rebellion, ambition, and the taste of freedom. Now, it's simply a part of my life, a part I fought for and earned with my own hands and unwavering resolve. And I think maybe that's the real victory. Not just getting back what I lost, but making sure I never lose myself again. I don't know if I've done everything right. Maybe I've made mistakes. But if standing up for myself was one of them, I'll gladly own it. And if anyone were to ask me, do you regret it? I'd say, no, not one bit. Cutting ties gave me the peace I needed to move forward, and for the first time, I truly feel free. One day, when Ethan and I were hanging out, he asked, do you think they'll ever apologize? I shrugged. Maybe not. But honestly, I don't need them to. I'm finally living life on my own terms, and that's enough for me. More than enough. Now I'm building a life where my work is respected and my passion is honored, not dismissed. To anyone reading this who might be facing something similar, you don't have to stay where you're not valued. You deserve better. And walking away isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself.